The July 11th meeting of the Missouri City Planning and Zoning Commission is called to order. We have a quorum here tonight. We've got 3 people missing, but I'm sure they will be in before it's over with. Here comes one right now. So we're only 2 people short.
The other 2 people will not be here.
They won't be, okay. All right, moving on to the agenda item number 3, election of officers. Reminder, the nominations and elections of the chairman and the vice chairman of the Planning and Zoning will be held at the August 8th, 2012 meeting. Moving on, agenda item number 4, the reading of the minutes. Do I hear a motion that we approve the minutes as presented?
So moved.
A second to that.
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Any further discussion on those minutes? All right, hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved as presented. Agenda item number 5, reports. I have no report to give as chairman. 5B, the commissioners. Anyone?
Nothing.
Okay, no reports from the commissioners. Agenda item number 6, the staff reports. Director of Development Services. Gary?
I would have announced that I have no report, except before the meeting, the chairman and I were visiting with the Assistant City Attorney, Missy Yamu, and the rules and procedures that you have voted on at your last 2 meetings will go to City Council for their approval Monday night. The report going from Planning and Zoning is as Planning and Zoning approved it. The rules and procedures to be presented will be as you approved it. There may be a recommendation from the legal department to strike section 503, which establishes the time limit for filing plats for consideration. And that time limit, as you recall, says they must be filed before the last business day of the 3rd week before the next Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. Legal's contention is that it is not necessary for that to be in the rules of procedure because that is an administrative practice and not a commission practice, and therefore is inappropriate in the rules. Do not know what reaction that recommendation will have with City Council. And if it is approved in that fashion, I anticipate that the chairman will request that a full explanation be given to you at your next meeting, since this is not an action item and it's not up for discussion, simply an announcement. So you will know.
Let me ask you one question. As those procedures and all were voted and approved by the Planning and Zoning Commission last month, is that going to come back before us before it goes to the City Council?
The recommendation from staff right now is that it move forward to City Council at the meeting Monday night. It will not come back to you before City Council considers it.
How do y'all feel about that?
And this is not an item for discussion. I'll have to bring it to you at the next meeting.
Y'all think about that, okay?
I have.
Is that acceptable, Gary?
Moving along, yes.
Okay. All right, moving on. Planning representative, Jennifer?
No comments.
Okay, 6C, Public Works?
No report.
No report. All right, agenda item number 7, public comments. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to step to the podium and address anything which is not on our agenda here for tonight? If you would like to do that, please be our guest. If you do, there will be no questions answered by the commission up here, nor any comments made by anybody up here on the commission, as the laws here in the state of Texas say we are unable to do that. Okay, moving on to agenda item number 8, the consent agenda. 8A, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Riverstone LJ Parkway Street Dedication Phase 5. B, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Millwood at Riverstone Section 1. C, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Shadow Glen at Riverstone Section 4. D, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 8. E, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 11. F, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 12. G, consider approval of a preliminary plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 19. H, consider approval of a final plat for Zernike Commercial Tract South Reserve. B. I, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 9. J, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 10. K, consider approval of a final plat for Sienna Village of Bees Creek Section 20. And L, consider approval of a final plat for Sonova at Riverstone Section 3, Phase 2. Do I hear a motion that we approve the consent agenda?
Second.
All right, it's been moved and seconded. Is there any further discussion on the consent agenda? I know it's long this time, but it's pretty much there. There's no problem with it. All right, hearing none, all those in favor, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay, the consent agenda is approved as presented. Agenda item 9, zoning text amendment process. 9A, discuss the process for the zoning text amendment. Gary?
I included this on your agenda so that we could outline and discuss how the Planning and Zoning Commission wants to be involved as we consider zoning text amendments. Think back to 2 of them. One, the sign ordinance, which you were involved from the beginning through the process, in and out multiple times, so that we had a very good idea and consensus and votes from the commission on how you wanted the sign ordinance to be shaped. Then there's another one I'll call your attention to, and that was the trash cans on the large lots. Can't say you had a whole lot of involvement on the front end, but you certainly expressed your opinion on it. That was a simpler one. Depending upon the complexity of a change in the zoning ordinance, that will control the number of times we will come back to you for clarification, for understanding, and for more input. I put together an outline of how I think we can proceed with it, and I certainly want your input on how you think that outline, whether or not you think it is successful for you or it will not be successful for the commission. We really want to involve you on the front end, and I was just given one that they want adopted by the end of the year on garage sales. Well, good news is it's going to have very little impact on the zoning ordinance, so we may touch garage sale signs, so you may get to see that. Yeah, I love the looks I just got. I'm sure y'all want to touch signs again right now. But what we want to do is let you know what item is coming forward. Gather your thoughts, your initial thoughts on it. Then we want to bring in stakeholders, and I'm trying to do this from memory, so if I get off track, wave at me. Bring in stakeholders and see what their issues with the regulations are, so we can define what our objects, what our goals, and what our purposes are And as we move through it and try to draft it and try to prepare it, we stay focused on the right topics and we don't get sidetracked on the wrong issues. But as we develop that, we come back to you to let you know how the progress is going so you can see how it's being prepared, what the stakeholders are interested in, and whether or not you think those are worthy goals or if they're goals that need to be moved to the side and that the community has different goals from the stakeholders. It seems improbable, but there's always the chance. Then staff will develop the strategies for accomplishing the goals, and we'll bring those strategies to you for you to see them. And some of these may be compressed depending upon the complexity. One that we're looking at, the next big one we're looking at, so you'll know, is landscaping. So be thinking about what you like or don't like about the landscaping ordinance and what we need to change, what we need to accomplish. But as we get the drafts of the proposed amendments together, we'll bring them back to you for approval, for modification, so we can have our preliminary report. Y'all can review that, call the public hearing, and ultimately have the final report. If we still need to make changes so we can get to the final report that planning and zoning wants and that staff can support, worded the way it should be worded so that it's enforceable and workable for us, we'll take time to do that on the complex ones. Is that outline good for you? By the way, I will assure you, if staff disagrees with you, we'll tell council. But we will take your recommendation and your report forward as truly as we can to your recommendation. We want that to go forward to council. We're not going to toy with that. That's going to go forward. But if we have a disagreement with it or we have a different view of it, we will let council know our different view.
I'd like to make, are you through?
I'm through.
I'd like to make one comment here in that I think the outline of the process here that you've laid out is extremely good. It's well put together. It gives us something to start with, to follow, and it follows in a logical sequence. And then as we go, as we see that there's something wrong with the way it's laid out, then we can correct that then at the time. But I think right now, the way you've laid it out is excellent. And I'm sure that the rest of the commissioners will probably agree with that.
So are we going to be bound to have these steps occur at our regular meetings, especially the ones up front? Or, I mean, obviously the public hearing stuff would at a regular meeting, but you know, if I look at this, it basically, we get involved in the process like 5 different times, and if we do that once every meeting, that's 5 months.
That's why it can be compressed, but as we saw with the sign ordinance, there are times that a special meeting is appropriate to get the input, to keep the process moving.
So we don't run any risk of having issues with the open meetings situation with reviewing materials outside of a regular meeting.
I will throw out an answer with the caveat that I am answering this as a director and not as what I used to be. But as long as we post the notice of our meeting 72 hours before the meeting, don't attempt to hold a public hearing. Even if we want to hold a public hearing, we can do it at a time other than your regular meeting. But as long as we post it, give the necessary notice or the required notice, if any is required, then we're going to be okay under open meetings.
I have a question too, Gary. I noticed on the outline, this would provide us with an opportunity to hold 2 public hearings. Would that be, because you see that? Is that?
You're correct.
Okay, I mean, which is interesting. Very, very well. Will that be on all of them or just on the more complex ones?
Our intent is for all zoning text amendments
Oh, okay.
to include a public hearing at the preliminary report and a public hearing at the final report.
It's interesting. Very good.
Public input won't hurt us. Matter of fact, Jennifer has involved Travis and I in seeing a presentation, and right now it's not in our budget, but there's an organization that does a web-based public engagement that if we were able to adopt something like that, and I admit it probably wouldn't attract people my age, because I'm over 40 quite a bit, and I don't understand cell phones and computers very well, but apparently the demographic 25 to 40 gets very involved in this. And the way they have it designed, it's positive input. It eliminates the negative just piling on of that's a bad idea without any basis or any justification. They require them to come forward with something positive to improve something. And if we have an opportunity to utilize a tool like that, I think we could get better public engagement, not only for matters coming before this body, but many issues that come that are civic oriented.
Okay, do I hear a motion that we approve the outline of the
There's no motion required, it's just discussion.
The discussion item.
Okay.
Looks good.
Anybody got any other comments to make?
Just the grammatical errors and punctuation, but it'll work on that.
I wasn't wearing my glasses when I typed it.
Okay, does anybody else have anything to say before we adjourn? We are adjourned.